Yeah. Hello to those are mine. I got to move those. Hello to everyone online. Hello to Betsy Johnson. Welcome to our next installment of both maple syrup history and Catholicism and disasters. Our focus today is on the Galveston hurricane of 1900. So per usual, I'm going to go grab my coffee from Monica's downstairs, and I'll come back when we get started.
Did you already order yours?
I did not.
Oh, I better take my wallets ready.
Let's see. I will be with you. No problem.
I'm gonna have it here, but.
What is your name?
Maybe?
Vivian. Awesome. Welcome. This is your first time to class, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, awesome. We have had like 30 people in class this year, all at different times. So it's so funny. It's like the last couple of classes we've had maybe 7 or 8 people. If everyone who's a unique participant like you are, like the first time today, we have like 40 people. They've been coming in and out. So it's, welcome. It's awesome to have you here. Hope you enjoy the class. We'll get started very, very shortly.
What's your name?
Groshin. My middle name's Anthony, so I always use that for coffee. It's simpler, but Groshin's my first name. What brings you here? How did you find out about the class? All that.
I tried to find it online. I didn't really find it. And then I passed. And
Cool. Sweet. Very, very good. If you send me an email later, my email's on the website. It's just intellect@vandalcatholic.com. I can send you the YouTube channel that has all the recordings of previous classes and that kind of thing. Intellect.
Intellect.
At vandalcatholic.com.
Oh, that's easy.
We started, I've been here since the fall of 2019, and when I first started doing the classes, it was all just in person, like, obviously. But then with the pandemic, like, all professors, I guess everywhere were using Zoom and all that. And there's a few people who, especially last year, 5 or 6 people who like to attend at distance and watch it live. So I just thought, kind of going forward, I'll always just put it online. We just have a kind of depository of our past classes and that kind of thing. So yeah, so in that, when I send you that channel, you can see this is class number 10, I think today, the previous 9, just of this semester. But then going back to previous stuff we've done, all that.
How many episodes?
Just one.
No, like you said, like there's 10 this semester.
So how many episodes probably?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have up to like number 240, I think. But it's like recording wise, I think on the channel, the last class, which was spring of 23, we got all the episodes. That was like 30. So that'd make 40 total. And then into the previous fall, last fall, I think I got like 20 some. So it's probably like 70 online, like 70, 80 hours or something kind of content going back there, but 240 just going back to when I started. But again, like that was before, before we started recording all that. So those earlier ones are not available anywhere, but the most recent ones all are. Let's just do it. Let's get started. If there's someone else coming. One guy comes always kind of later. You are here. Let's get started. All right. So Vivian and everyone else watching online, the class, all of you people online know, you perhaps do not. The class is called Catholicism and Disasters. And so what we do is we have a disaster and we talk about what happened, right? The kind of like facts of that. Then the Catholic response. So today's topic is the Galveston hurricane of 1900. Hello, Betsy. Betsy, meet Vivian, Betsy. The Galveston hurricane of 1900. So I'm going to give you facts about that, a little Catholic response, and then kind of give you a book suggestion, I would say. Now, I don't think most people are probably not going to get this book, but it has a chapter midway through which covers it kind of in specificity. Betsy, you're looking like you want to know what the title is. It is the Episcopacy of Nicholas Gallagher, Bishop of Galveston, 1882 to 1918. And the author is a nun, Sister Madeline Grace. And the press is Texas A&M. Okay. Hurricane of Galveston, September 8th, 1900, is the nation's deadliest natural disaster. In this class, and you can find the syllabus online, perhaps you've already seen it, we cover all types of different disasters, like earthquakes, like fires, nuclear war coming later on. We're going to talk about 9/11 and COVID at the end of the semester. One of the most famous natural disasters in the PNW, certainly, I'd argue probably the most famous one, is Mount St. Helens, right? In May of 1980. And the double proximity of Mount St. Helens, that it's close to us and close to us in time, kind of gives this overshadowing feature. And in a very, very similar flip side way, because this happened so long ago, 123 years ago, and in Texas and all that, we think, oh, I'm sure it was bad, etc. No, it is still the nation's deadliest natural disaster. Point number 1, for all of you listening online, Betsy, Vivian, anyone who wants to keep score, notes-wise, this is point number 1 of about 34 points I'll give you. Point number 1 is the death toll will actually never be known completely. People estimate up to 8,000 people, but it could be larger when you include Galveston Island, the kind of surrounding area. In Galveston itself, more than 2,500 houses are completely destroyed by this event. Goes without saying, as there's 8,000 deaths, there's many more injuries. As there are 2,500 houses destroyed, there's thousands more, tens of thousands perhaps, that are left damaged. The city's property losses are estimated at $28 to $30 million. Now, that is $28 to $30 million of the money back then. Adjusted for inflation, we're talking hundreds of million, close to $1 billion of today's money. The storm surge, when it comes in, inundates the coastline with 8 to 12 feet of water. Of those people that died, the 2,500 and the other that were injured, 10,000 out of a population of 38,000 are left homeless, are left completely bereft of any type of shelter. So 25% of the city is not just demolished and destroyed, but kind of left in a refugee type status immediately afterwards. And perhaps neither here nor there, I don't know how many of you have this kind of intimate, deep knowledge of Galveston history, but it ends the quote golden era of Galveston. Who can tell me, Betsy, I bet you know the answer to this. I bet you know if I can need an answer, I come to you, right? Where do you think these people who are survivors of Galveston moved to? When they're like, we're done with Galveston, the city's wrecked. Vivian, no one wants to be in a wrecked city, right? I don't. We got to leave. Where are we going? And this really creates the population boom of the city.
They move north?
Will not give you any help. You have to guess.
I don't remember. I know I've read a book about this, but
Vivian, guesses.
I don't remember.
What do you think? Anyone know what the fourth largest city in America is? Everyone knows Chicago's number 2. New York, Chicago, LA. What's number 4? Houston, Texas. Modern day Houston is created out of this storm surge, in the sense that a lot of people enjoyed being right on the Gulf of Mexico in Galveston proper itself. With it destroyed, there is this migration into the creation of this modern metropolis of Houston. I remember recently, I think it was for an architectural class, but I was very, very shocked to learn how populated Houston actually is. No kidding, I would guess, Chicago, every California city, whatever, Houston, number 40, 50, nowhere close to top. It's number 4. And a lot of it is, imagine if, for instance, the Bay Area earthquake of 1989, San Francisco and Oakland. Imagine if that had so damaged that whole Bay Area, that the millions of people who live there all moved to Los Angeles. And today Los Angeles had a population of like Tehran, Iran, of 14, 15 million people, and not just 2 or 3 million or however much it is. This is a similar phenomenon. Okay, so kind of first effect is that all this damage, all this destruction, worse natural disaster, it also changes the kind of demographic map.
So it is kind of a little bit northwest to Houston from Galveston. So
I'll give you half credit. Galveston is on the coast of Texas, right on the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, so you're talking about like modern comparison. Imagine like a city on the Oregon coast, getting like Tillamook, etc.
They're whatever that state is, Texas. Like Louisiana, yeah.
Yeah.
Growing up in Seattle, I didn't think of Texas as having a coast because
Sure.
I think of the west side of Texas doesn't have a coast, so.
Yeah, right. Just Panhandle, West Texas, Amarillo, all that kind of stuff, right? And then Texas is so connected, at least intellectually, with the Rio Grande and the Mexican border and all that. So yeah, very good.
So the coast part just wasn't part of my radar.
Totally. There are some Texans at the Vandal Catholic Center, of course. I mean, students, come from anywhere, but people too, especially like John Pavlak, who used to be here, he's a Texan. And I wonder how much, like you're saying, growing up in Seattle, just proximity to where you are from impacts just general awareness of the geography and whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So now you know Texas very well.
No, I haven't actually been there, but
How dare you? How dare you? I need you to map out every county in Texas. I heard some political candidate once, he drove a car to every county in Texas. That's what you have to do next time. When you go see your daughter, like, we're going on a road trip, every single county. It's a big project. You can film it, you can have like a vlog or something, right? And report back to us. I think he still lost. That sucks, right? That sucks. He put all this effort in just to lose. That's brutal.
commend you for wearing matching socks.
Oh yeah, it's a running joke. Like, Betsy actually is so kind, she bought me a pair of socks.
No, my daughter got given a pair of socks.
Got it. So it's it was regifted.
Thought would wear them.
Right. It's regifted to me. But it's funny, over at WSU the other day, I was opening up a class. I just asked all the students, I'm like, does anyone have any questions? And this young woman is like, why do you always wear mismatching socks? So I love it. Like, I'm not trying to go for like a thing, or I hate that when this guy's like, oh, I just wear red shoes every day or whatever, like that's so yucky. Like, that's not my theme to have mismatching socks, but today for whatever reason, I don't know, it just happened to work out. So that's good. Okay, what are some more background information? Remember, the storm is September 8th, 1900. September 8th, the nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, right? We just celebrated this feast day recently. August 27, 1900, a ship east of the Windward Islands detects a tropical cyclone, the fourth observed that year. It makes landfall in the Dominican Republic, Haiti, right? Hispaniola, that island, August 30th. Stays on on Hispaniola, on the Dominican and Haiti landmass. But here's the interesting thing. Here's the kind of key. Because what do you think is the ultimate human reaction that exacerbates these fatalities in Galveston? Remember, it's the worst one ever. Thousands of people dead, tens of thousands of homes destroyed, 25% of the population left homeless. What is a very human nature thing that exacerbates the disaster here? What do you think it is? And just here's like a general. Sorry? Exactly. It's not going to be that bad. Come on. You know, my grandfather, he survived this kind of thing. It's not a big deal. Everyone chill out. Exactly. Up to the day this happens. And this doesn't help. That on September 1st, a week before it hits Galveston, and I really like your question, Vivian, about the geography of Galveston. It's good to kind of have that in our mind, right? Here's Galveston on the Gulf of Mexico, and just think southeast down towards across the Gulf of Mexico into the Caribbean, down to Hispaniola, all that. As it's coming up, making its way up, a week before, as it hits the Dominican Republic, it's a weak tropical storm. So people, hear these reports, like, that's not a big deal. Some downed trees, maybe take cover, but it's nothing to worry about. This is the golden age of Galveston. We have balls to attend. We've got stuff to do. We have a city to be alive in. What are we going to do? Evacuate? We're going to leave? It's not going to be a big deal. So that doesn't help. However, as it works its way northward, it eventually strengthens into, obviously, as the disaster is titled, a hurricane. Peaking on the morning of September 8th as a Category 4 hurricane. I'm not sure. I believe that is the second highest. I think, like tornadoes, when we talk about a full scale, I think F5 and hurricanes Category 4 or 5, I think, is the strongest hurricane. So this is like the penultimate step, the second to last step of hurricane strength, maximum wind speeds of 150 miles an hour. Anyone ever been out in like 20, 30 mile an hour winds? Who's like been out? Like, it's like I watched weather.com today. It was 23 miles an hour. Anyone ever been out in that? No one has. No one knows what.
I was at the beach with the hurricane.
Really? What was the wind speed? Do you remember? Do you have any context?
Left where it got really bad, but I remember when we first left, that we were pretty.
Oh man. Sure.
I never been in wind that you could lean into.
You could lean into?
Yeah.
Like get pushed from, or?
Yeah, and you could lean your weight into it.
Ooh. Yeah, wow. That's crazy. Yeah. But that's a funny kind of physics equation of like how much pounds per force are you applying to the wind that's able to balance you back as if you're like a Lego guy or something. That's funny. Well, I recently even, like, I'm not a weather nerd. I don't check weather.com on a regular basis, but I've been outside when I've been aware of like, oh, it's gusting. It's like 30 miles an hour. This is 5 times that. And my point was 30 miles an hour is a nice gust. If you're out in 30 miles an hour, like your hat's going to fly off. The wind's in your face. It's obnoxious. It would not be fun to go walk a dog at 30 mile an hour winds.
And with some 30 mile an hour gusts, you don't want your, construction workers out on your high rise.
Sure, totally. That's enough maybe to slip you a couple feet. Absolutely. This is 5 times that. This is a really, really, really big deal. And this is how it's going to hit Galveston. In the slow roll up, it's going to hit Galveston at 150 miles an hour. The next day, as it moves past, the damage is done. The bomb has gone off, so to speak. And remember, it's a massive bomb. It is the worst natural disaster in U.S. history. Then it weakens again. It weakens back into a cyclone as it moves inland through Houston, eventually goes up through the Midwestern United States as it becomes once more this kind of tropical storm. It goes through Midwestern U.S., New England, up to Eastern Canada, even the Gulf of St. Lawrence. You're talking about like Quebec, Montreal, Newfoundland, that area. But this is not cool, or this is not like, and I never want to be flippant, like, well, that was too bad that this bomb was dropped on Galveston, everyone else is okay. No, listen to this. Even as the storm moves forward and it's no longer this 150 miles an hour, it's maybe what you're talking about when you were young and you're driving and the trees are moving kind of thing. It downs telegraph wires, signs, trees. Fatalities occur in a bunch of other states: Ohio, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, Missouri. God rest all their souls, these poor people. I mean, it's like if you're in Missouri, you're definitely not worried about a hurricane, right? In Missouri, there's a massive recent disaster. I don't know if any of you two have heard of this, or anyone online has heard of this, but the Joplin tornado of Missouri. When were you born? What year?
2002.
Okay, so you'd have been 9 years old. So if you were from Joplin, Missouri, if you and your family like left this, evacuated this, you would have obviously, memories of this. 2011, there's an F5 tornado in Joplin, Missouri that completely destroyed the town. It looks like Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which we're going to cover in this class. It looks like atomic bombs were dropped on it. It's awful. Everything is destroyed. So if you're in Missouri, you're worried about that kind of stuff. It's Tornado Alley. You're not worried about hurricanes. Oh, well, sweeping through. The remnants of the hurricane caused as possibly as high as 232 deaths. And not to make it all about money, but once more, $35 million in damage of that money then, which today is equivalent to $1.2 billion. So the storm over the course of its path, not just Galveston, causes over $1 billion of property damage and assorted stuff. Now, back to Galveston. The city of Galveston was effectively obliterated. With the city in ruins and railroads to the mainland destroyed, the survivors had little to live on until relief arrived. Thankfully, these kind of heroic people doing the best they can to help their fellow man established very quickly the Central Relief Committee for Galveston storm sufferers. And the chair is the mayor, Walter Jones. And these people do what today FEMA would do, or the Red Cross, or you see like, a drive. Can you please donate $20 to help these earthquake survivors? Subcommittees for burying the deceased, just general correspondence, seeing if you can reestablish communication with the quote unquote, outside world. Of course, number one, distributing food and water. Everything's down here, food, sewage, everything is kind of like cross-mixed. I mean, you're trying to get clean water in, some type of food. And of course, hospitalization for the people that are injured but not dead. This has a horrible effect of just killing people on the bomb drop, the day September 8th, when it hits the city with 150 miles an hour. But what about all those people that are left, afterwards? The dead bodies were so numerous that they have to get, quote, dead gangs to go and unbury these people and just take them out, and they dump them in the water. And sadly, as they dump them into the water, what happens with tide? Obviously, it pushes them back onto the beach, right? Now, Vivian, this is your first, Betsy, I'll come to you in 1 second. I see you want to have a comment. That's a great comment. Well, I'm going to make you do a comment in like 2 seconds. But I want to, Vivian, I'm so glad you're here for the first time with this point. In this class, so far we've covered the Black Plague, and we're going to talk about World War I next week. I hope you'll do this the rest of the semester. Well, we talked about the Black Plague and what we talked about with World War I. What we will talk about in both those cases, there's this terrible, sad, tragic desensitization to death, right? Where in the Black Plague, I don't want to get the plague. So even if my entire, close friends or family died, I'm not going to touch them because I might get it. And so, Betsy, you survived. You have immunity. Why don't you and a couple people go and just put all the dead bodies in a pit? And this is awful, right? This is so terrible that they're not getting buried with respect. Oh, we don't have time for that. It creates this kind of coarseness and like desensitization around death. We're going to see the same thing happen in the First World War. These guys go off to war and think like, it's great, everything's cool. I'm going to get, medals, and everyone's going to think I'm like a war hero. And they realize it's a lot of death and suffering and people dying in these trenches. Same kind of theme here. This whole class, Catholicism and disasters, whatever the disaster is, it often comes back to this thing that makes you want to cry. It's like heartrending when it's like these poor people, not only are they dead, people are doing their best to bury them. These dead gangs are doing like holy work. They're putting aside their own like quest for water, food to go help their neighbor and get these bodies buried and like clean up the city. And that doesn't work. And the wave is still churning. It's putting bodies back in the ocean. It very much is like a war zone. It very much like it's like a war zone in the worst possible place. So they finally go super, I'm talking like ancient Iliad, old school. What do they eventually do with the dead bodies? They burn them on the beach in massive pyres. The way you see, like, have either of you seen the movie Troy with Brad Pitt, Eric Bana? Have you seen Troy? No?
Not sure, but I've read the Iliad a few times.
Sure. Like, well, at the end, there you go. So even better. It's actually a very faithful representation. Hector's the worst. I hate Hector. I'm joking. I of course do the obligatory. Hector is the guy who's just duty and good and humble, and Achilles is bad, but I don't know.
He does his duty even though
he knows he's gonna die. Right. True. Yeah, but the Trojans did it to themselves, by taking the horse in. That was really stupid. They should have burned the horse. But instead, at the end, right, like Achilles is burned in this massive funeral pyre. I mean, think about when I think of as a historian, and by the way, again, so we're doing all these introductions. The first day we've met, whatever. My background, my PhD is in history, and so this class is not so much history, part theological, part philosophical. It's kind of mixed bag. It's more even like just a podcast about this certain topic. But I'm always thinking as a historian, and when I think as a historian, the idea of burning bodies on massive pyres on the beach is almost like a Viking practice. It's an old pagan practice going back to like pre-Christian times. This is how bad this is.
Yeah, but they weren't doing it for pagan reasons.
Of course they weren't. No.
Sanitation.
Thank you for saying that. That doesn't need to be said. Of course, the intent is completely different. The Viking intent is this religious intent. They're doing it here to burn the bodies so they don't wash back on the shore and for sanitation. What I'm just saying is imagine, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I'll come back to you and make your whole point. But what I'm saying is 100% you're correct. Imagine the horror if you traveled back in time. 1900 is super recent. I tell people
these Viking burials too. Aren't we excavating Viking burial sites?
So maybe only the warriors are burned. I don't know.
I don't know. They're there with their boat and their everything buried and all their weapons.
Maybe they weren't good enough to get burned on a beach. Maybe you had to be a real good warrior to get burned in a boat. I don't know. Do you know?
Or maybe you had to die in an impractical place and they just burned you.
Maybe. Okay. Well, then, right. So you're saying
maybe they're burning their traitors.
For traders, okay. No, that's interesting. Okay. I don't know. No, yeah, maybe. All I'm saying is here is certainly for sanitation. But imagine if you travel back in time to 1900. This time we have the current wars. Tesla and Edison, the Chicago World's Fair 7 years prior. They have all the stuff we have, just worse version. They have cell phones, internet, so to speak. Of course, I'm being sarcastic. You get my point. They're very, very modern people. Electrical cities, all that kind of stuff. I always tell people, if you were to show someone from 1300 a computer and a phone, they'd have no idea what you're talking about. How does that work? How do I press this thing and put this box up to my ear and I can talk to someone? How does that's insane. Someone from 1880 would understand you right away. At the World's Fair in 1904 in St. Louis, they are trying to do wireless telegraph, like wireless internet, wireless communication. So this is a very modern time. 1900. Imagine you show up and there's just bodies being burned on the beach in the open. I'm saying it would look like something out of the 5th century BC or something. Okay. What else is important here? So survivors set up temporary shelters. They're donated by the U.S. Army. A lot of these tents, and they were so numerous, people began referring to Galveston as, quote, the white city on the beach. The tents are literally white. And so it's like the city is destroyed, remember, down to 25% of the lodgings, 25% of the population, completely destroyed. So not only have the beaches become impromptu funeral pyres.
Okay, go again on the percentages of the people killed and
25% of, I think the numbers are similar on both. Between 25 and 30% of the city dies and is destroyed. Like both. Like the population and I mean 25% of the buildings are flattened to the ground zero level. The destruction is close to total. I think it's 100% of the buildings suffer something. Yeah, right. I'm talking about 25%, like Ninth Ward. We're going to talk about it as well. Hurricane Katrina later in the semester. Vivian, at the risk of repeating myself, online the syllabus lists all of the topics. And good, yeah. Oh yeah, thank you for signing up. That's not necessary. It's so informal, obviously. Yeah, you see, like the class. It's
sign up, then we can text you, right? Or email you.
Well, I guess if you sign up through Flocknote, I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Or Flocknote, if something changes in the syllabus.
Yeah, it's not going to change. It's set in stone. It is like chiseled. I actually got marble and chiseled it in stone. So it's not going to change.
That's what all the teachers say, though.
Then they change it. I know, they're all hypocrites. Exactly. They're the worst. No, I think ours should be pretty consistent. And what's fun is going back to what I said earlier about the kind of podcast nature of this class. it's very possible we'll have, 30 people for the sinking of the Titanic or 9/11. It's very interesting. Some topics are very boring and obscure and like, why, whatever.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to find a seat in here, and sometimes.
Yeah, we were saying that I was telling her before you came, if all the unique attendees in this class were here at once, we have about 35 people. Like we had the Schmitz and Brad King and Mauricio and Turner and Grace Martin and all these kind of people. But it's like, you talked about the funny time, and it's true. 12:07. I love weird numbers. I wish I made it 12:07, 37 seconds, even more like strange. But I try to accommodate why is the class at 12:07? There's mass on Mondays from 11:30 to noon. So some people, if they wanted to come over afterwards, it would work for that. But also, like I have to put in my schedule. I teach at U of I and WSU as well, and try to fit this class in between that larger schedule. The biggest drawback, the double biggest drawback, is a lot of people have told me, "Oh, I'd love to come to class. I have work." Well, duh, right? Someone has a 9 to 5 can't come, and then students especially too. Like you cannot get any credit for this course. I wish you could. And we've actually been working on that for a long time. But it's like it's a class that I offer for free, and people get something out of it. It's like that's such a blessing. It's awesome. I think it's a very high quality, good class. But because it's free, that's great. The downside is I can't get credit for it as a student. So people come in and out. And so the point I make about the syllabus is like, if there's don't feel like you have to attend, you please come every class. I'll be here every class. That's awesome. Feel free to. But if you're just like, I really just want to come for 9/11. It sounds very interesting, or Titanic or whatever, but the other stuff I'm not interested in. Come and go as you please. You had a point. Go ahead. I've been talking way too long.
Yeah, I was gonna think that Galveston is kind of exciting, and you might want to get back to it.
Let's get back to it. Let's do it. I agree. Hey, you got us off. You got us off. It's all your fault. It's 100% your fault. So remember, they're talking about it's this white city on the beach. The Army has donated these white tents. 17,000 people are in these tents. Now, remember earlier, the stats, about 38,000 people in the city. 17,000 is almost 50%. You're 2,000 people away from 19, from exactly 50. Half the city, all these survivors are just chilling on the beach, doing the best they can. Others constructed so-called, quote, storm lumber homes using salvageable material from the debris to build shelter. That's ingenious, like tip of the hat. Some people are like, I don't want to live in a tent. I'm just going to literally get like stuff off the beach. I don't know, driftwood, whatever, like whatever's available here, maybe remnants of a house, a beach house that got knocked down, and just build these things. What's nice is these people start getting back on their feet very, very quickly. Winifred Bonfils, she's a young journalist who's working for the famous William Randolph Hearst, is the first reporter on the scene. She delivers an exclusive set of reports from ground zero. So imagine like, hi, I'm Winifred Bonfils reporting from, for CNN or Fox News or whatever, from ground zero in Manhattan kind of thing. Interactively, obviously not for TV, but just, over mail, etc. Hearst himself, this oligarch, is sending relief supplies by train along with all the other kind of charity that is being collected, certainly the state over, but the country over as much as possible. Within 3 weeks of the storm, because water has been restored already by September 13th. Remember, one of the big problems was sanitation, how to get clean water in the city. Water is restored on September 13th, less than a week afterwards. By September 15th, a week after, charitable contributions have totaled $1.5 million. This is the great silver lining of this course. This is a very sad course. Every class talk about an awful thing that happened. I say, ad nauseum, God rest all their souls. These poor people suffered, they died, these premature deaths from all these awful things. But look at the beautiful human love that comes out of this. Within a week, the country over, $1.5 million of that money, not our money now, $100 million today has been pouring in. More than $134,000 from New York City alone. Very, very cool. New York City is not close to Galveston. It goes without saying. $134,000. So that's millions. That's $7 million today, maybe, just from New York City. And these are not like, Donald Trump wrote a check or something, like one of these businessmen. This is like normal people like us, just donating to the local Red Cross, humanitarian efforts, whatever it is. 5 other major cities, St. Louis, Chicago, Boston, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, have also donated around $15,000 a week after the disaster. And while Texas donates $67,000, very cool. Texans helping Texans, it's kind of local subsidiaries, help my neighbor. The largest donations are from New York City. New York State, excuse me. And what's very cool is if you subtract the $134,000 from New York City itself, the total is still 228. So that's still $94,000 that's coming in from other parts. That's still larger than any other state.
Dollars then to dollars now.
I said exactly. So the $134,000 from New York City is like $7 million today or $10 million. It's a lot of money. It's legit. It's legit charity. So the 1.5 million. Let me see if I can see, just do the math in my head. 35 million is worth 1.2 billion. That's how much damage was done. So if you have 35 times less than that, that's still something, I don't know, 100, again, like $100 million or something of relief that comes in. Okay, guys, I think that's enough facts, right? Everyone got what happened in Galveston. What about the reactions? The reactions, and find the Catholic reaction. Well, I highly recommend you read this firsthand account from this weatherman named Joseph L. Klein. Joseph L. Klein is an excellent primary source. Again, as a historian, what is most exciting about history? Primary documents. I love that I know everything about Moscow. I read the journal of Betsy Johnson, you know, all the things she wrote. That's a way better indication of what life was like in 2023 Moscow than just other books. You know, what did Betsy say? Betsy was the mayor of Moscow, and she had, you know, all the correspondence, whatever. Joseph L. Klein is on the ground. He working in the post office is actually responsible for, oddly enough, there's not this National Weather Service, is responsible for storm warnings, let's say. Quote, in those days, only the central office had authority to issue storm warnings. About all anyone else could do is watch the weather, telegraph his own observations, wait for central office advisories, and distribute them when the time came. So what he's saying is, there is a weather bureau in where? Where is the National Weather Bureau? There's not a National Weather Service yet. It's an office, a bureau, like a one room in DC. Exactly. This is ridiculous, right? So DC is going to be responsible. Exactly. That's the correct answer. And just like ponder that for a second. How stupid is that? That DC is going to be responsible for issuing stuff that's happening 2,000 miles away in Texas, 3,000 miles away in California. And often people working in the post office like Klein are those most tuned into the telegraph. There is no television. There is no internet, but tuned into the kind of correspondence over the telegraph. And they have no authority. Only the central office in DC has the authority to issue official warnings. But often it's like, well, do your best. If you hear something, say something, but there's not the coordination we have today. So please note there's a double problem here. We started the class earlier saying the one problem was the natural human thing of like, it's not that bad. My grandfather survived. We're going to ride out the storm. People still do that today. That happened in Katrina in 2005. That's still a modern phenomenon. I'm not going to leave the storm. It happened with Mount St. Helens. Harry Truman, the guy who lived at Mount St. Helens. And he's like, I'll die if it does. I don't care. Yeah. And he did. And they did. Exactly. So there's that kind of attitude, which you can even respect. Be like, I'm not going to, I'm an old dude. I'm not going to uproot my entire life, whatever. God's will be done. But there's that attitude of not wanting to evacuate, coupled with there's not the warning system. No one's getting a alert on their phone, vandal alert, a tornado spotted in Cottonwood heading towards the Palouse, take cover. There's none of that. So Friday morning, the Galveston weathermen, the storm is Saturday. You heard the date, September 8th, 1900, but it's a Saturday. So this is the 7th, the day before. Friday morning, the Galveston weathermen had noticed the first clear signs of approaching hurricane, an increasing Gulf swell rolling in from the southeast, and feathery cirrus clouds. The cirrus too came from the southeast. There was only a few at first, but quote, a trained observer would know they presaged heavier clouds. I would not know that. I had no idea. The sight of cirrus clouds means there's, behind them coming these more heavier storm clouds. Well, Joseph Klein, this guy is thinking, okay. And neither were other Galvestonians especially worried. Theirs was, after all, a substantial city, 37,000 people, the fourth largest in Texas. And he would just think, we've seen these things before. You've seen these things before, these storm surges, tidal waves. It's not a big deal. I don't think anybody. In terms of like early evacuation, nobody. Because the warnings were not to that level. The warnings were not saying, listen, like Mount St. Helens. I remember.
They might have closed their shutters. That was
Right.
more-
They might have battened down the hatches,
Yeah,
close the shutters, whatever, food, get some food in some area. Like they're like leaving the city as an exodus. No, everything I read, no one is doing that. This is interesting. This will answer your question, Vivian. While Joseph slept, the morning edition of the Galveston News was being printed. That's the next day, September 8th, the day of the storm. In it appeared a local weather story whose hopeful final paragraph noted that at midnight, quote, the moon was shining brightly and the sky was not as threatening as earlier in the night. The Weather Bureau had no late advices as to the storm's movements, and it may be the tropical disturbance had changed its course or spent its force, end quote. So you're in Galveston, you're not worried. My grandfather survived it. There's not an early warning system. And you know what? I heard though from the weather guys that a week ago in Hispaniola, it was weak on land, remember? So that's positive. And now the newspaper that I trust, this is my window to the world. I mean, we cannot overstate how important newspapers were before television and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. Like that was where everyone got that's the only place you got news, was from the newspaper. So the Galveston News, which as far as you're concerned is the authority for the city, says it's going to be cool. It's good. We observed at the time of printing, we observed the clouds, the sky, things like it's going to be calming down. Joseph gets up about 4 o'clock in the morning after he's gone to sleep, sweet dreams, and hears like bomb level roar, the ocean like churning crazy outside his window. He later describes, quote, a sense of impending disaster. Is that true? I don't know. Maybe he's just saying that because he knows what happened. That'd be something like saying, like, I knew when I drove into New York City on 9/11, something bad was going to happen. It's like, well, did you really know, or are you just saying that now because it happened, right?
maybe sometimes he had a sense of impending disaster, but never had a disaster.
Totally. And you're right. And so what I'm saying here, I'm not saying, oh, look, he's BSing. That's BS. I'm not saying that. I'm saying take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But here's what he says. I sensed that the waters of the Gulf were already out over our backyard. One glance out the south window showed me that my presentiment was correct. I immediately awoke my brother. These two clients go on this, they go nuts in a good way. They're like, we need to warn everyone. They become compared to Paul Revere. What do I mean by that? These two Klein brothers, doesn't matter what the Galveston News says, the water's getting, they're riding up and down the beach, warning people to leave low areas. Does anyone care? No, they're good. Like, these guys are nuts. These guys are obnoxious. Most residents, having experienced overflows before, were not worried. They were sure the Gulf was harmless. Some people simply never received any warning. By 7 o'clock, most Galvestonians were awake with paper in hand, no big deal, despite what they're seeing out there with their own eyes, maybe. And what do you believe? The experts say, don't worry, in your hand, but you're seeing with your own eyes, looks like it's problematic. Many had finished breakfast and were preparing for a full Saturday's work. This document notes it was routine in 1900 to have a 6-day work week, to only keep the Sabbath rest, take Sunday off, but you worked even on Saturdays. People weren't, oh, I went out partying all night last night and I'm hungover, sleeping until 1 p.m. on Saturday. No, people were up for a normal work day. They're awake, they're ready to go. But these obnoxious guys who are running doom and gloom, it's like, will someone shut them up? Like, it's not a big deal. I have the expert source here. It's fine, right? Well, at 10 a.m., Joseph Klein in the post office and the local weather bureau receives a telegraph order to change the storm warning and to hoist the flag of like, oh, we messed up, we screwed up, it's actually going to be bad. Within a matter of hours, 10 hours earlier, saying the storm is going to pass them over to now all hands on deck. If anyone's been at the beach and you see when they put up those flags, right? Like the purple flag or the red flag, dangerous surf. Yeah, they throw up this thing like it was like yellow or like fine, it goes right away. Ironically, interestingly, within 5 minutes, the flag is ripped to shreds by the wind. Talk about like proof of the thing. Like the very flag to warn you is destroyed by the massive building winds. Okay. 2:30 in the afternoon, as the city is now getting pounded by rain, pounded by storm surge, just getting hit now by the eye of the storm. Joseph goes up to the roof of the building and finds a rain gauge that had been blown away. The Weather Bureau estimates that a total of 10 inches had fallen in that period. That's an insane amount. An inch of rainfall, and again, I am not a meteorologist. I do not understand meteorology. I've heard something like an inch of rain for like 30 inches of snow. Something crazy like that. If there's an inch of rainfall, it would be equivalent to 2.5 feet of snow if it came at that level, right? So 10 inches would be what? 2,000, 20 feet of snow. I mean, just insane amount of precipitation in the air. They realize they have to start warning people. By this time, it's too late. His brother says, quote, half the city is underwater. Like they're surveying, like we were just writing up and down, Paul Revere style. Everyone's like, whatever, dude. We have the source papers, no big deal. Half the city's underwater. At 5:15, the wind gauge topped the Levy building, whirled to pieces. This Levy building was the same place you check this gauge. Keep the clock in your mind, right? By midnight, things are cool. 4 a.m. Impending disaster. 7 a.m. People are awake. I don't know. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, half the city's underwater. Now we're at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The last recorded velocity was 84 miles per hour, but the wind was gusting to at least 100. Isaac, this guy, later estimates the velocity was, quote, 110 or 120 miles an hour. Some guesses go higher. In downtown, St. Mary's Cathedral, the Angelus rings out at 6 o'clock in gloom, and Father James M. Kerwin, the pastor, said it sounded like, quote, a warning of death and destruction. The cathedral towers themselves are swaying back and forth. Imagine they're not built to do this, the way a skyscraper is built to move with the wind and flexible steel. The 2-ton bell was torn from its iron bands and clasped, crashed to the floor. The entire part of the city is being kind of swept away. And here's an awful kind of firsthand account that Klein reports on. Most survivors are holding out in their homes. They watch as brick buildings are being flattened by the undermining action of the water. So imagine as the water's coming through, it's just like cutting down Lego buildings. Just they're being incinerated, basically. Incinerated, literally, set on fire by water. Like bad use of that word intended. It's like the water is bursting them into flames. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, go on.
No, you go.
No, I was just.
After you, please.
The incinerated seems like
a bad analogy, yeah. But no, I stand by it. Exactly. Incinerated is literally like set on fire. It was even set on fire by the water. The water is so powerful. It was like blowtorch, just like setting these things ablaze. But instead of the fire, it's the foam, it's the water kind of coming up and blowing the buildings up from the ground up. Worst of all, as people are hiding out in the buildings, they hear their own buildings crack and groan. Most had resigned themselves to dying. In one house near the beach, a group of 50 hovered in a second bedroom window. Above the ceaseless din of the storm, several of them heard a little girl's voice ask, quote, "Mama, how can I drown?" For her and for hundreds of other Galvestonians, the answer came just after 6. Another storm wave swept ahead of the hurricane's vortex, crashes over Galveston Island, destroys many of the buildings still standing. So there's multiple waves of this. The first wave earlier in the day that's completely submerging the city, by which these brothers at 1 o'clock are saying half the city is flooded. There's second, third, there's more waves coming on top of it. When the water rose to almost a second floor bedroom of his doctor, it's just flooding, but Galveston is so low lying. It's like New Orleans. It's at 0 level. So it's like even a 4-foot wave is like tsunami like. Imagine like
it's like on the sandbar.
Yeah, no, perfect. So that's exactly it. Why is it that if you build a sandcastle, even fairly sturdily, just one wave reduces it to nothing? It's like that. The city is on the ocean, so a 4-foot wave is hitting half of the buildings. There's waves as high as 12, 15 feet that are higher than the building, crashing in full speed with 150-mile-an-hour winds around it. It is a horror show. It is a disastrous show. So this guy Houth, this doctor is in his house. And his name is spelled Howth, and the water's up to the second floor. And this one woman says, "Papa, are we going to die?" "No, daughter, it's almost over now." Then the house collapses. Quote, "The crash threw me away from my wife. I sunk under the water." He's struggling to get back to the surface, grabbing a window frame, clinging onto it as if it's a life vest as he's being swept out to the Gulf of Mexico. Thank God this guy survived. But it's like this is the reality, right? No mention. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't say. I don't know. I can only tell you what I have from the sources. I hope so. No. Hey, interrupt me all the time. Honestly, please. Like, I hope you've even seen, like, this class is so crazy informal. If we had more people, I would probably would sing or do like a rap song. That often happens in class. I'm not even joking. She can testify to this. Betsy's a long-term veteran. Don't ever apologize for interrupting me. Interrupt me whenever you want. What I'm saying is, I wish I had the answer for you. I don't know. It doesn't say. No, here it is. Thank you. Quote, like many other Galvestonians, he had lost his family, his house, everything but his life. God rest their souls. Maybe he wishes he died, you know. As this guy's coming back in, clean to life, he hears, quote, some of the crowd become panicky, many begin to sing in a prideful effort to discipline themselves, but others simply surrendered to hysteria. At impact, they felt the house shudder and move. It was afloat, house is falling. Some people lunging backwards through windows as the house rolls over from the water, knocking it over. Okay, I think that's enough of that. I think we're getting to this point where it's like just getting gratuitous. What are some quick Catholic responses? Because Vivian, now you know the whole format of this class. If we have a topic that's very, very in depth, like we did it for the Black Plague, and we will do it for 9/11 and Chernobyl, often the first day, the Monday, will be only facts, and the next day only responses. I'm not saying Galveston isn't important. All these, I picked them all because they're important. I picked these 30 topics out of 300 topics. I think they're all important, but on a day where we just have one lecture, not two, we'll do the responses and the reactions, or the facts and the reactions, 2 for 1. I think everyone's got what happened, right? I think that's fair enough. I think it's good information, in a very sad kind of way. What are some responses? Well, one of the coolest kind of standing responses in the Catholic world to this disaster is the Congregation of the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word. To this day, wherever they are in the world, Congregation of the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word sing an old French hymn, quote, Queen of the Waves. And they do it in remembrance of the people that were lost during this great storm. Their house in Galveston was completely destroyed.
Are these ones at the orphanage?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe so.
Where only a few of the
because listen, exactly. So among the dead in Galveston, 10 sisters and 90 children from St. Mary's Orphans Asylum, operated by these sisters. So indeed, these women were Catholic nuns running this orphanage, and they themselves suffered great personal loss as well. Not just
and they tried to save the children, and in trying to save the children, they lost their lives.
Yeah, and it's like in hero.
But
hey, no. Yeah, exactly. No man has greater love than this than to lay down his life for his neighbor. I mean, these are sisters or heroes. Sister Elizabeth Ryan, one of the 10 sisters at St. Mary's Orphanage, had come into town that morning to collect food. Despite pleas from Mother Gabriel, she's the assistant superior at St. Mary's Infirmary, for her to stay at the hospital until past, Sister Elizabeth said she had to return to the orphanage. Because she told them if she didn't return, if I stay here and take care of myself and ride out the storm, these children will not have any food. They will not have supper. They will go hungry for that day. During the afternoon, as we already learned, the winds and rain continue to increase. The tide rises higher and higher and higher. St. Mary's Orphanage consisted of 2 large 2-story dormitories just off the beach, very low lying, right there, the sandcastle thing, just off the beach behind a row of tall sand dunes supported by salt cedar trees. The buildings had balconies facing the Gulf. According to one of the boys at the orphanage, the rising tides began eroding the sand dunes, quote, as though they were made of flour. Soon the waters of the Gulf reached the dormitories. The sisters of the orphanage brought all the children into the girls' dormitory because it was the newer and stronger of the two. Very kind of wise practicality here, right? Maybe it'll withstand. If we have any chance, it'll be in this more fortified building. In the first floor chapel, they try to calm the children by having them sing Queen of the Waves, the song they sing, in remembrance of this horrible event to this day. The waters continue to rise. Taking the children to the second story of the dormitory, the sisters had Henry Esquire, a worker, collect clothesline rope. Again, they had the boys and girls sing the song. You guys focus on the song. Your voices are so beautiful. Just do whatever to distract them, right? We'll work on the practicality for to save you. You just keep singing the song. Keep focusing on God, on being calm, on your breathing. One of the boys later said that while the children were very frightened, the sisters were very brave. And I can attest to this too. My first academic book, my dissertation, was on Catholics in the Civil War. And I dedicated a whole chapter to sister nurses, women who ministered to obviously wounded soldiers. And this is not some kind of like woke feminist point, like, oh, the women were the best. It's true. All the soldiers were like, the women were absolutely the bravest. We men during the war would go out and fight the enemy and stuff because we like to fight. We're soldiers. even if we're scared, we want to be here. These women were not allowed to carry weapons. They were going out in the battlefields unarmed and were braver than we were because they were just fully focused on love of God and love of neighbor. I don't care if I die, I'm going straight to heaven, was their attitude. And indeed, amen. I mean, just laying down their life completely. And so I'm just going to focus on saving these people. So the sisters have this kind of identical, exact same track record in this orphanage during this time. It's later attested to. All of the later kind of accounts say that while everyone else is freaking out, losing their head, I probably would be. I'd probably be totally panicking. They're very, very brave and calm. By 6 p.m., remember the timeline before from the other guy, right? The two brothers. By 5 o'clock, the city is done. By 6 p.m., the wind was gusting past 100 miles an hour, and the waters of the Gulf and the Bay had met, completely flooding the city. Residents climbed the second stories, attics, even roofs, whatever. This is, again, sorry for all the 9/11 references, but it's fresh in my mind. The anniversary, of course, was last Monday. Those poor people, like in the two towers, if the plane hit below them, some of them went to the top, right? Because I can't go down, I can't exit anymore. That's, there's 20 floors of like jet fuel, whatever, burning. Maybe if I get to the roof, I don't know at that time the building's going to collapse. Maybe someone will come get me off the roof later. So people here, they're trying to get to the highest point, which is obviously the most logical human instinct kicking in thing anyways, right? Residents climb the second stories, attics, even roofs. Flying debris, though, strikes many who are up there. So in this vortex of this wind, it's basically a tornado plus the water. It's not just the water incinerating, purposely used incorrectly, right? Incinerating the buildings from beneath. It is the wind, the driving stuff, throwing this debris around. People are being hit by debris by 100. Imagine being hit by a wooden plank at 100 miles an hour. I mean, I don't have to go further. It's literally being on a battlefield, shrapnel and that kind of thing. At around 7:30 p.m., the main tidal surge strikes the South Shore. Houses on the beach were lifted from their foundations and sent like battering rams into one another, just lifted up, whatever. St. Mary's Infirmary, the floodwaters fill the first floor. From the second balcony, sisters pull refugees in as they floated and brought them into the overcrowded hospital. These sisters are superheroes. Not only are they saving their own, they're pulling people out of the water, like that one guy who was drifting out to sea and trying to save them as well. Almost every window in the facility was broken out, sending the wind and rain whipping through the building. At the orphanage, the children and sisters heard the crash. The boys' dormitories collapsed and was just swept away. So that was also very prescient, very smart by them to take refuge in the girls' dormitory, which is better reinforced to withstand. No one foresaw this, but any kind of disaster. The boys' dormitory just becomes one of these buildings. Eventually, the dormitory building that had been the sanctuary for the children and sisters lifted from its foundation. Bottom falls out. The roof comes crashing down, trapping those inside. Only 3 boys from the orphanage survive. Crazy. And their names are William Murney, Frank Madeira, Albert Campbell. Miraculously, all 3 ended up together in a tree in the water. After floating for more than a day, they were eventually able to make their way into town, where they told the sisters what had happened at the orphanage. The sisters who had not come down from the main place to the asylum. Sisters were buried where they were found, with the children still attached to them. 2 of the sisters were found together across the bay on the mainland. One of them was tightly holding 2 small children in her arms. Even in death, she had kept her promise not to let go. And indeed, I mean, just unbelievable. Heroic women. Amazing women. Okay, we're basically done. I just will say at this point now, this is, very, very heavy topic. All these topics are. Vivian, my apologies if you're I'm looking for a real light, fun class. That's why I'll do like rap songs and stuff and sing randomly. Last class we had someone, and Betsy, you were not here last class, right? Was that correct? Yeah. That's unacceptable. See, I thought you just had missed, but you went to Seattle. Now I'm no.
I'm not replacement surgery. I'm the 8th.
Is that a good excuse to miss class? Is that a good excuse to miss class? I don't know. Probably. It's a reason. I don't know. I'm still not convinced.
But it was best to join the Zoom.
How is your mother doing? Is she recovering well?
She's recovering. She's 89, so it's
wow.
intense to
Sure.
recover at 89.
What does it look like? How long before she is she able to walk still and all that kind of stuff? Or
a little bit. She's with the rollator, she can go down the hall a little bit. Just
whatever she can manage.
She's supposed to do a little bit of walking a few times a day.
How long before she's able to get back to that, just that routine?
Well, they consider like 6 months for a full recovery, 4 months to be back to as good as you were before the surgery.
Got it.
So it's, you know, a major recovery thing.
Certainly. And like you said, it's for someone who's 90 years old, all the more, well, all prayers and well wishes to her. Last class, she's a good patient. That's great. Last class at one point, someone had talked about, I made up some lyric or something, so I made a country song about it. And we try to add some levity to the class. It's such dark material. It's awful. This is just awful. But maybe again, thank God, right? You know, wherever sin abounds, grace all the more. Look how heroic these sisters are. Sisters are superheroes. They're you know, real life Marvel comic type people who are not just saving their own and themselves, but people around them. Just amazing women. If you want to know more about this, everyone listening online, people in class, the Episcopacy of Nicholas Gallagher, Bishop of Galveston, by a sister herself, a nun, Sister Madeline Grace. The pertinent chapter is the chapter number 7, the 1900 storm. So if anyone would like to, you know, read about this, I would get this book, and especially just chapter 4, and it takes you through in great detail. I had to read this book last year because I was committed. Sorry.
I found it on.
You actually have my copy if you want. I don't know when. Did you already order it?
No, I didn't order.
Okay, then take my copy here. I'm serious. Just take my copy. I don't know when I'll need that again. The reason I got that copy for free because yeah, take it. You can just have it forever. Just honestly have it forever. I don't know that I'll ever be able to use it or need to use it again. Or if you want to return it to me, just put it in my mailbox downstairs when you're done. You know, whatever is good for you, but you're welcome to keep it. I had to do a book review about that last year, maybe the Journal of Southern History. I forget exactly who, but it was nice. They sent me a complimentary copy to review the book, and I did. And even then, I found that chapter. The whole thing is about his episcopacy, and maybe it's all apologies to Sister Madeline. Maybe some of it's kind of dry and just vague, kind of ecclesiastical stuff. The chapter on the storm is very, very exciting, but exciting in the most harrowing, kind of awful way. You wish it wasn't exciting, you know. All right, my friends. Miss Betsy, Miss Vivian, awesome having you guys in class. Until Wednesday. Real quick note. On Wednesday night, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but on Wednesday night, I give a monthly talk. It's only once a month. It's my first one this semester. It's called the Hippo Lecture. Why is it called that? You're thinking. Because St. Augustine is our patron, and he was from Hippo in Africa. So on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, I am doing a part 1 of a prose poetry reading. It's not like the class at all. It's part of my job here as director of intellectual formation, but it's nothing to do with this class, nothing whatsoever.
You know, they do with dinner.
Exactly. Yeah. So the people that do the dinner are awesome. They always, I mean, this matters, right? You want it to be good food. I think that matters, right? You're like, you know, yeah, right. I mean, like the food is really good and it's free. I think the whole night really maybe even begins like at 4:30. There's like adoration at 4:30 and mass and the whole deal. Confession as well. Yeah. So exactly. So thank you so much. So
you go to the parts that fit in your schedule.
Oh,
yeah.
No, Vivian, exactly. No, absolutely. No, exactly. No, not at all. I'm saying if you'd like, right, but this is funny, but exactly true. You're both exactly right. What I'm saying is it is available for you to go through all this stuff if you'd like. You can just come to my talk at 6:30. If you're like, you know what? Because the talk is if you've ever read Dante, Divine Comedy, he has Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso, right? I'm doing a just purgatory story. Betsy Johnson, I hope you come. You probably have something going on with like volleyball, I bet, but I hope you come. Do you? Or no, are you available this Wednesday?
I don't know.
Well, it's
I'm a little behind on helping with homework too.
You should have your whole family come, and then I'll give him a shout out, and then like you can have your husband come, and him and I can get into a fake fight just to create hype for the event. You know, he can come in like he yell at me, I'll yell at him, we'll get into an argument. I think that would get people excited, right? Before the whole evening starts.
Forget which time is it again?
The talk is at 6:30. The dinner's at 6. Mass is at 5:30. And as Vivian corrected me correctly, it's not even going back to 4 is like confessions and all that. But the last thing before I sign off, you know, see you later to Wednesday. The last thing I'll say is, no, that's exactly correct. Just like I told you, you're welcome to come all the classes. You're welcome to never come again if you don't want. It's come and go as you please. They're all standalone episodes. We're never going to cover Galveston again. Next class is San Francisco earthquake. We're done. A week from today is Titanic. Like we're just moving forward. They're all individual episodes. invite other people to come if you want, if anyone would be interested, or don't, do whatever you want. The Wednesday night thing is the same kind of free thing, that feel free to come to all of it or just come to the talk. The dinner is directly after mass. The dinner begins like at 6, talks at 6:30. So, all right, you guys have anything else you want to add? My coffee's empty. I'm disappointed about that. That's not good. You're welcome. You're very welcome. This is overkill. They have Monica's coffee bar on the sleeve and the cup. This is too much. Don't you guys think?
Oh, yeah.
So I gotta peel off one of them. I don't know. I'm gonna peel this off and get a tattoo of this. You know, and that way I'm like, I don't need a sticker. I already have it tattooed on my arm. I already got it. Exactly. All right. See you guys later. Until Wednesday. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.